going to talk today about taking the plunge. Everything's available. There is nothing that should inhibit you from proceeding. And yet some people they don't know where to start. They get frustrated, they get fearful, and it comes time to actually do it, and a whole bunch of things stop folks from getting this thing done. How to take the plunge, the greatest obstacle to starting. By now, if you've been a student of Bizar Financing for a while, you know you have the tools. And during the course of being a student of Bizar Financing, I know because I talk to many of our students from time to time, you guys are excited about the possibilities out there. You must now take that energy and use it to overcome your fears. And what fears are we talking about here? There's the fear of the unknown. Many people are very comfortable with what they know, but the minute they step into that area where they're not sure what can come at them next, that fear of the unknown just becomes very paralyzing. The fear of failure is a very powerful fear that keeps many of us from even trying in the first place. The fear of looking foolish. I have to tell you, here I am on this webinar today, and my throat isn't clear. I feel like I'm looking very foolish, but I have no fear of it because we're all human and we all have our weak parts. And if I worried about looking foolish, I'd never get out there either. It's important that you overcome these things because they can really inhibit you. There's the fear of loss, and this is the one that really hits analyticals really hard. Folks don't like to lose. And the idea that once you make that effort, once you actually engage that thing, then you can lose. And this is the one that blows me away, is the fear of success. Some people are so comfortable with failure, so comfortable being in that place of stress and struggle that the whole idea of being successful is off-putting to them. What do I do with that? How do I handle that? And there are people who actually are afraid to move forward because they truly are afraid to succeed. You will sense these fears most often when the time comes to meet someone, sign something, or do something that you do not feel prepared to handle. Successful people have the same fears as unsuccessful people. The difference is successful people proceed despite the fear. I find myself in situations many times with as much as I know and as many times as I've experienced them where some fear sets in, but I just don't let it stop me. You just push through it and you recognize that it's actually a fairly flexible emotion, meaning that you can really push it. And when you push it, it does tend to go away. To overcome the fear, preparation and planning, key. If you're prepared and you've really planned out what you're going to do, it tends to help overcome those fears. You take the simple steps first because that gives you some confidence moving forward, and you start to see moving forward isn't as bad as you may have thought it was. And if you can adopt a mental attitude on your first attempt to do anything that it's only practice, somehow when it's only practice, we don't fear it because after all, it's only practice. And even though we may be doing it in a real sense, but if we're treating it as practice, it helps to, again, remove the fear. Accept mistakes as a learning experience. I continue to make mistakes. I've been at this 50 plus years, and every once in a while I make mistakes, sometimes more often than I'd like. But I accept that they're learning experience. I accept that learning is a lifelong enterprise. And if I want to get really good at anything and I want to stay good at it, it's always going to be a constant learning experience where you keep making mistakes. Work with a buddy. When we gave the live events and we had our trainings in large meeting rooms, we used to have exercises where we would pair people up and give them assignments to do together. And it was amazing how working with a buddy energized people and started to remove a lot of the fears because they got a sense they could count on their buddy. I love the buddy system. And if people that have an alignment with your goals, buddy up with them. Take a lot of that road together. And I think you'll find it's a great support system. And then, of course, you got to stay focused on the dream. If you start to allow yourself to think about the challenges, think about the problems, think about all the things that could go wrong or could happen, that's where things can get a little off-putting. But if you focus on the dream and you stay focused on the dream, then all those little eddies that you constantly are walking through tend to get small as opposed to big. And the dream becomes the dominant thing in your focus. Now, believe in yourself, and that's a really important part of this too. Everybody that's on these calls with me, you're here and you've taken special effort in yourself to make yourself adept at getting yourself into a good, successful business. You're already doing things that the vast majority of people don't do. You've learned certainly things that the vast majority of people don't know. And that puts you way ahead of those folks. So please recognize that in yourself and believe in yourself and know that you can do this. And that belief in yourself will really help you persevere to overcome those fears and those reluctance areas where you find things hold you back. After pushing yourself through the early steps, that momentum will carry you through the more difficult steps later. The most important thing is to get going, just making those little baby steps, getting yourself out there, actually doing it. I once had this aversion to exercise. I just couldn't get the idea that I was going to go out and run, or I was going to do weightlifting or any form of exercise. I just couldn't get into it. And a very good friend of mine said, look, here's what you do. Get yourself exercise clothes, i.e. sweats, tennis type shoes, or whatever it is. You have a workout outfit. And don't even think about working out. Don't even think about that. Just put on the workout outfit. Just put it on. And watch what happens. So I did that. I got myself some sweat clothes and proper shoes to do all this stuff. And then I just put on the clothes. And by just doing that, all of a sudden, the whole idea of taking the next step, which was doing the exercise, wasn't a big deal anymore because I had now prepared for it. And it's just the idea of taking those little baby steps that help get you going, that once you start building that momentum, it all takes on a life of its own and it starts to move very quickly. And once you're started, you'll be amazed at how your fears fade. But it's so important to just get started. Take that first step. Do those first things. Get that momentum working. The greatest obstacle to succeeding, the negativity within ourselves and from others. A lot of times we have this little voice that's going off inside our heads. But you can't do this. This isn't going to work out. You're not really entitled to have a business of your own. What makes you think you're good enough to do that? And then if we're not saying that to ourselves, other people are saying it to us. Other people who may even be jealous of who we are and where we're going because they're not going there. They're not taking the steps that'll get them there. They don't have the thinking capacity to undertake these type things. And they're telling us we can't do it. We must convert them from those little voices, from the no, I can't, I'm not, to the yes, I can, I am. And this is perhaps the greatest challenge of all, and it's one of the things that you must do for yourself. And for the next 90 days, if you're on this call today, I'm going to ask you to write this down on a piece of paper somewhere, put it down on a note that you're going to make to yourself, and do this. And then for the next 90 days, you must concentrate on replacing the negative programs with their positive counterparts and building your strong self-image of that person who can do anything you set your mind to, as that person who has the capacity to be incredibly successful in your own business, and to start building that image about yourself, because you're going to build an incredible building on yourself as the foundation. But if your foundation isn't strong, you're not going to be able to build a really tall building on it. And creating the strong self-image is an essential part of what you need to do to be successful. If your family and the people around you aren't positive towards you, and they don't get it that you need to be in a positive place, and then you tell them, look, I don't want to deal with that negativity. I really need you to be positive with me. I need you to support my efforts. I need you to let me know that you have faith in me, and they're not going there. Then the smartest thing you can do, at least for a foreseeable time into the future, is to distance yourself from them. Because if you do not, they will keep pulling you back into the boiling water that you've been sitting in, because that negativity will keep working at you until you distance yourself from it. And that's a hard piece of advice. And this is the most painful advice we give in this course, and perhaps the most difficult, And the second most painful advice that we give in this course is turn off your television set or your PC, all right, or your phone. And the reason for it is they are distractions. They are distractions. There's all this stuff and drama going on around you, and they get addictive, and you feel like you got to see the next show, you got to accept the next tweet, you got to do all this stuff. In the meantime, you can't make any money with that stuff, okay? It's not doing you any good at all for the building of a successful financial future. It's a distraction, and you've got to get past it. So it's the second most painful advice that we give in the course. And take that time that you would have spent doing those things. Take that time for the next 90 days and use it to reread over and over again as many times as possible each section in the workbook. Okay, if you took that same time and you reread one of the important chapters that gave you a key tactic or a key method or a key concept that could help get you into business, or an idea that would help you develop a new product, or whatever it is that would make your financial efforts successful, just think of the difference in your life outcome if you took that same time and put it into the constructive tools and materials that are around you, and especially within the Bizar Financing course. Each review will create a deeper level of understanding, making all of the information more usable. I have people that I've talked to through the years. Remember, I've been giving this program since 1980, so I talked to a lot of people who have been through it 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 5 years ago. And the folks who have been really successful, tell me the same thing. They live with this course. They live with the audios. They live with the videos. They revisit over and over again until they become second nature to them, until they just automatically think in the terms and in the positive ways that these educational and training videos that we put together are there. And the reinforcement, the way in which they become a second nature to that person, so that when a situation pops up, they don't even have to think about it. Immediately in their brain pops up the solution. Immediately in their brain pops up the technique or the method or the strategy that is the very strategy and technique that they can use to overcome that challenge. This is very powerful stuff, and the people who are the most successful use the tools to so heavily reinforce it in themselves that every tool, every technique, every method literally becomes second nature to them. The next 90 days is a period of behavior modification, because if you aren't smashingly successful, you are in need of some behavior modification. You are. And that's true of every one of us. If we're at a place where we're stalled, we need some behavior modification. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome or a different result. If we're not getting that different result, then it's time for some modification. There's something going on inside of us that's getting in our own way. And I'd like you to think of the next 90 days as your opportunity to clear that, get past that, and change that and modify that behavior so that the new behavior starts to work for you. And it will require tremendous self-discipline to overcome the habits of a lifetime. We're creatures of habit. We get in the habit of doing the same thing the same way over and over again because that's human nature, okay? And we've tried to change it, and if we only think about it for a few days, then a few days goes by and we're right back in the same habit again that we were before. But you can do it. You can do it. Our most successful graduates did it by immersing themselves in the information and the techniques taught in this course. They took each section one at a time and line by line and followed the instructions. They make this manual for themselves their business builder's Bible, and it will guide you to the fulfillment of your dream. Everything you need to guide you through this business starting or business buying and business succeeding maze that you have found yourself in is in our workbook, it's in our videos, it's in our recorded webinars, it's in our audios, it's all there. It's been put in there year by year, block by block since 1980. And through that time, remember, we've lived through different economies. We've lived through booms. We've lived through busts. We've lived through inflation. We've lived through deflation. We've lived through booming stock markets. We've moved through busted stock markets. And all along the way, we've addressed the challenges, addressed the changes, addressed all the different things that were happening at that moment in history and how those challenges were overcome. So you have an array of information and tools available to you through Bizar Financing that can accommodate your needs and your progress in any type of economy, any type of business environment, in any type of industry, in any type of business, with any type of dream or goal that you have. So use it. You got to keep reviewing it and keep working with it. You want to clean up your personal finances. There is nothing that puts more pressure on people than having to worry about getting their freaking bills paid, than worrying about what's going to happen if I can't meet my rent payment. What's going to happen if this big bill comes due and I don't have the money for it at the time that it comes due? What's going to happen if? The best way to handle that is you get your finances in order, okay? And by that, it means that you take a really good stock of what your living expenses are. You cut them back wherever you can. You make sure that you've got more coming in than you have going out, even though it means sacrifice. But now you're building up stuff instead of tearing it down. Now you're getting stronger every day instead of weaker every day. Now you're starting to feel more comfortable in your own skin than you were before, okay? And cleaning up your personal finances is a really big thing so that you relieve yourself of all that pressure. You know that things are now heading in the right direction, that the base under you is getting better and better every day. And clear up your short-term obligations, those things that hit you all the time, and keep creating some of that negative thinking, because how am I going to handle that? How am I going to take care of that? The less things you have gnawing away at you, the less things that are coming at you negatively automatically get stronger. You want to pay off or renegotiate debts which cause high monthly obligations. If you got a high monthly obligation, okay, then maybe you can stretch it out over a longer period. You can renegotiate it so that you don't have to pay as much every month right now, and that'll help relieve you of some of that pressure. Tighten your purchasing of non-appreciating assets. What are you spending money on that isn't doing you any good? And how do you stop that? Think it through. There'll be ways. Clear up your credit if possible. Start an emergency fund. All these things just make you feel better about life and yourself. Form your purchasing business as outlined in the Everything Wholesale Manual. If you don't have a purchasing company, you are missing the boat, okay? I have National Diversified Funding Corporation. You know that, right? That's my main company, actually. I have DBAs up the wazoo for that company. I have National Diversified Home Care. I have National Diversified Decorations. I have National Diversified Media. I have National Diversified everything. So that whatever I need to go out and buy, I don't care if it's personal or business, I buy it under that DBA. Why? Because that enables me to negotiate it as an industry insider of that industry, and I'll get the doggone stuff wholesale. I'll get it below wholesale. I'll get people who want me to have one, because if I'm in that business, they want me to know about them, they want me to use their product, and they want me favorable to their product, and they'll either give them to me sometimes without even charging me, or they will charge me a very low amount because they want me to be familiar with their product. So Everything Wholesale Manual, it's in the tools. It's in the tools section of the website. Go in there and get that. Reread that. Use it to set up your DBA, your buying company. It'll save you a fortune. It'll take a lot of financial heat off you. Obtain copies of the books and publications mentioned in the various sections as you review them, and then study them. So much today is done online, so much easier. I don't get much in the way of printed materials anymore. I'm able to get everything on my screen, and you can too. Visit the websites using the links in the various sections and get a feel for the vast array of tools available to you via the internet. The internet has put the world at your fingertips. The world. And even things that only take place in foreign countries, the internet tools, Google, will translate it for you. So before, you didn't know French, you couldn't find out about that because it was a French thing. It doesn't matter anymore, okay? You get adept at identifying the key phrases and words that describe what it is you're looking for information about. You are powerful today. Nothing can elude you anymore. And you don't have to be rich to get the knowledge and the know-how. It's out there. It's available to you. And you want to practice the creative attitude in all aspects of your life. Defer judgment, think positive. Be a solution to the problem instead of part of the problem. Don't take no for an answer. I love this about young kids, where they're still in that barrage of the word no, right? But they're not at the point where no means no yet, okay? So they keep asking, Mommy, can I have this? Daddy, can I have that? And no, no, no. And they hear it thousands and thousands of times, but every once in a while, Dad or Mom gets tired of saying no, and they say, yeah, okay, all right, have it. Begin your search for the right business. Decide on buy or start. Are you going to be buying this company that you're going after, or are you going to be starting it? Because you can get there either way. I prefer to buy. Buying's head and shoulders better than starting, for all the reasons that I hope you know. If you don't, go back and read the text, because there's 1,000 reasons why it's better to buy than to start. But either way, know where you're going. Choose several approaches, then start to concentrate on the one or ones that suit you best. It doesn't matter that somebody used a technique and it was highly successful and it was exactly what you wanted to do and the technique worked great if the technique doesn't fit you. So what I mean by that is 4 personality styles, right? Promoter, analyst, supporter, controller. The 4 personality styles are different. You got to know which one you are. And you want to use the techniques that fit your personality style. There's hundreds of approaches that you can take. And after all the years that have transpired since 1980, they've all been brought into our course. We keep updating this course all the time. Begin reading your local newspaper in depth at least once a week, especially the business section. Now, I live at this little community called Canyon Lake. It's a little community in California, halfway between Los Angeles and San Diego. We have this little newspaper here that serves the community. Okay, this is a gated community, 5,000 homes around the lake. It's got a little community newspaper. I read that thing every Friday, the Friday Flyer. And why? Because as I'm just thumbing through it, I'm seeing little things of people and what they like and what they're doing. And this isn't a magazine that sets the world on fire. But you know what? I pull connections out of there. I pull insights to there. It's the things that are going on that I wouldn't know are going on. And then at those events, I can meet people or I interact with people there. But at least I know what's going on. I have a source of that information. Subscribe to one or more publications that will keep you informed on critical shifts and trends or that can stimulate new ideas. And your list should include things like Forbes magazine or Entrepreneur. Entrepreneur has been one of the most fantastic magazines for entrepreneurs. And it's been that for the last 40 years. Its publication is pretty old now, but they've kept it relevant. They have wonderful articles. They tell you what the hot anything is. They give you case studies and stories about people who have succeeded in different things in entrepreneurship. Yeah, there's a lot of garbage in there, and there's a lot of hype, and there's a lot of stuff in there that probably doesn't have any value. But all you need is one good idea, and it paid for the time you spent reading that magazine that week or that month. Okay, the Wall Street Journal. It ain't what it used to be in many ways, as many newspapers aren't. But the Times, the New York Times, the LA Times, business section still tells me a lot of what's going on out there. The Wall Street Journal, they have that wonderful column on the left-hand side of the front page. You scan down that real fast, and it tells you, bang, all the articles that are in that Wall Street Journal. And your subconscious mind, I guarantee you, will pull out as you're scanning down that the one that you should go read. They're fabulous. They'll help you get where you want to go. Even a publication that deals in your favorite hobby or sport can give you ideas. Make time for browsing the internet as a way to search for information, new ideas, and possible business opportunities. Get out of the house and start meeting the people. One of the most valuable things you can do is pick a charity, any charity. The Heart Association, United Way, anything to do with any of your major diseases, any of your social benefit groups. All those charities, all of them have benefactors, people worth mega money who are supporters and behind those charities. And they attend their events. They take part in their fundraising drives. They are involved. They're usually there because of a passion. My brother-in-law died of cancer, so I support the Cancer Society or whatever it is, because I got a reason. I got an emotional reason why I really want that organization to accomplish something and be successful. And I care. And you know what? When I meet somebody else there who cares, I automatically care a little bit about them. And they automatically care a little bit about me. And we automatically have something in common. And we automatically have an opportunity to talk to each other and share what's going on in our lives if you pursue this properly. And so all of a sudden, you're building allies of people of substance. If you are working at a full-time job, meet people for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Okay? And I don't know any job that ties people up. Even for that 8 hours a day, there's always the half-hour lunch or the 45-minute lunch or the hour lunch, or if you're in some businesses, 2-hour lunches, right? Or there's before the day starts. Before work actually starts, you can meet them for breakfast. Those are times that can make money for you if you know where you're going and you got your plan down. Use weekends and evenings for meeting and planning. If you plan to start a business, do a market survey by a certain date. Okay? Contact one potential investor per week. I don't know any investors. You ain't doing any charity work if you don't know any investors, okay? You haven't spent any time on the internet identifying angel groups. You don't even have to spend time on the internet. Just go into our research center, go into the place where we talk about the different sources of raising money, right in Bizar Financing, and you'll see dozens and dozens of links to angels. dozens and dozens of links to venture capital, dozens and dozens of links to every type of entity you would want to finance your business. So don't tell me you don't know any investors. You just haven't taken the time to go learn and find investors. You just haven't taken the time to go do that, and you haven't created the plan to go do it. And it's time that you did it. Prepare a business plan, okay? How many of you have a business plan for the business you want to go into, where you've laid out A to Z, where you're going, what you're going to do, how you're going to get there, what techniques you're going to use, where your money's coming from, how big you want it to be by such and such a time, and what kind of methods you're going to use to market the product. So please prepare a business plan, pick a date by which you're going to have it done by, and then post with a magnet a note on your refrigerator door that you got to see every time you go in there to get a drink or a snack or anything else. Business plan due by this date. And then underneath that, you might have, in order to have it done by that date, I got to start it by this date, I got to finish this section by this date, this section by that date, this section by that date, this section by that date, so that every one of the items that has to be in the business plan, you got a date for that. You should know something about accounting. You shouldn't be an accountant. That's not necessary. But you should understand a debit and a credit. You should understand a balance sheet. You should understand a P&L. You should understand a cash flow statement, because you're going to get those if you go out to buy a business on the companies you want to buy. You got to know what you're looking at. So it might be really a cool idea to take accounting 101, some community college. If you are comfortable with your accounting, but you're not really good at sales or marketing, well, you might say at the local junior college here, can I get a course in marketing? Probably. Can I go online and take a course in marketing? Probably. What do you need to get better at? Okay. Find a class for it. Find a training for it. Pick a date by which you're going to do it, and do it. If you're planning to buy, you need an activity plan. You need something that keeps you in motion. So you're going to develop a plan, and that plan might be call 5 ads per week. In other words, you're going to look in businesses for sale. You're going to look on the internet. You're going to look at all these different places where you can identify people who are advertising that they have a business for sale. And you're going to commit, call 5 ads per week. After a while, guys, it's the law of numbers. You make enough calls, you're going to get occasionally a yes. You're going to occasionally get somebody who says, I was waiting for somebody to call on that ad. Send out 25 prospecting letters per week. I'm just going through some of the techniques we train you how to do here. Inspect one business per week. Make one offer every month. There should be a commitment on your part to do it, and you should be following to see, how am I doing on this? Am I getting it done? Because it's all in the law of numbers. If you are doing none of these, then nothing's going to happen. But if you're doing just that little outline right there and you're disciplined in it, it's all in the law of numbers. At some point, you're going to hit a number, and the guy's going to come up, or the gal's going to come up and say, yeah, this is great. I was waiting for somebody to call on my ad. And now you got a live one to talk to here. You're in motion. Good things are starting to happen. Contact several business brokers about your goals. There are business brokers galore out there, okay? They don't cost you a dime until they find you something. And they don't even cost you a dime then until you close the deal. And if you negotiate with them and you take the time to develop a rapport and relationship with them, I get them to cut their commissions. I get them to charge the commission to the seller, but then they put it back through escrow into my deal, reducing the amount of down payment that I have to come up with. Because at the end of the day, a business that they sell has value. A business they don't sell is just costing them time. Visit one new office per week. Practice your seller analysis by stopping at a for sale by owner and testing out the 10 questions on it. I'm going to ask you this question. Everybody should know that there's 10 questions you ask a buyer. And the 10 questions are in our workbook, and they're designed each one to do something very specific. Those 10 questions work for you. And if you're not out practicing and asking those questions to sellers, then you're not doing yourself justice. Because at some point, knowing how to ask those questions, knowing how to use them properly will help get you the very business that you want. Remember, if he's not a flexible seller, he may not respond. But don't worry, it's just practice anyway, and it might lead to your first purchase. So when you get the first guys you're going to go call, you don't have to take it that seriously. You don't have to overly stress yourself and burden yourself. You're going to go out and practice. And the most successful folks I know, they've been doing this 30 years, and every time they're just practicing or out there having fun. They're enjoying the process, and they're allowing themselves to be themselves in the process. And that's when life gets really fun. But to be there, you got to know the stuff in Bizarre Financing cold. Find your partners. Your goal is at least $50,000 or more in cash. Now, that's for a tiny business. You want to find $500,000 worth of investors, $1 million worth of investors. And if you're a real aggressive son of a gun or daughter of a gun, you want to find a couple of $1 million in investors. You want to find lenders that if the deal is right, they'll fork up $5 million, $10 million, $20 million if the deal is right. Find a charity you like and take a project by and then write a date in there. If you aren't doing charity work, you are missing out on the golden opportunity for an entrepreneur to hobnob with the movers and shakers of your community. That once you establish a commonality with them, and if you're already halfway there because they're at that charity because they believe in that charity and like that charity, and if you're harmonizing with them right there for that, it isn't the far reach for the next step to find that they're interested. What do you do for a living? I do this. Okay. What do you do? So you're now having a conversation. This is as natural as falling off a log. And if they like your projects, they like the things you're working on, don't be surprised if they say, can I get in on that with you? Because wealthy people, guess what? They have money to invest. Don't like leaving it in the bank account. They want to see it out in a nice project somewhere, making a lot of money for them. It's hard for people who need money for businesses to realize that at country clubs, at these charity organizations, that these folks with lots of money hobnob with each other. And a subject of conversation is finding great things to invest in. They got to do something with their money. And you should have answers for them. You should have a way that you've created for yourself to have access to them. And then you should create a plan, a pitch, a way to bring to their attention what you're doing. And if you do it right, you don't even have to beg for the money. You just let them know what you're doing. And in fact, the best fundraisers I know, or people for raising money out of these groups, are people who do not seek directly the money. They just tell people what they're doing, okay, and the great returns that they're looking at for their investors. That's it. And then lo and behold, a lot of times those people will just turn to them and say, can I get in on that with you? Establish relationship with the professionals. Sooner or later, you're going to need them. Attorneys, accountants, appraisers, bank and loan officers, other lenders, local zoning and planning officials, management consultants. So you want to have people that are in your contact base that are in all of these areas that are conversational to you. You can just call them and say, hey, John, I'm working on this. What do you think? You do that with the right attorney. He's going to say to you, if it's the right attorney, he's going to say, I've got a client that does that. Or I've got a client that just did this with someone would probably work for you. When I say work for you, his company would finance you, would provide marketing services for you. Whatever it is that you're having this conversation about. You got allies, okay? You got people who extend your reach, extend your access to resources, develop a clear mental image of your target company. Okay, you've all heard me talk about RMA annual statement studies. Okay, so I know if I'm going into a certain industry, I find out the NAICS code of that industry, the North American Industrial Classification System. You send that to RMA annual statement studies, and you can get a statement study that shows that industry and what all the critical ratios are for that industry regarding their financial statements. So with that RMA annual statement studies, you will know everything you need to know about the company you're going to be looking for. You're going to know what their sales to asset ratio is going to be. You're going to know what their debt to equity ratio is supposed to be. You're going to know, and once you know all those things, you know exactly how to construct a financial statement for a company you haven't even seen yet. Because if you just know the sales to asset ratio of a company, okay, and you know you're going to go for a $25 million company in sales, well, once you know that ratio, to support that sales requires a certain amount of assets. Then you know the debt to asset ratio. So if you work all these ratios backward, you will construct a financial statement of a business you haven't even seen yet. So that helps you get a clear mental picture financially what a company's going to look like that you're seeking, and you haven't even seen the company yet. And then you start to think about, where is it going to be located? What part of the country? What is the physical facility going to look like? And you start to create this clear image. What's it going to be like to manage a company like that? What kind of employees am I going to have reporting to me? So you're painting an image for your subconscious mind. And once your subconscious mind gets it, this is what you're looking for, get out of the way, because it's going to find it for you. You want to make an offer on a business or location you would like to own. You're going to get the feeling for what it's like to be turned down for presenting a creative offer. Do you know I get turned down constantly for the creative offers I present to businesses? They say, I'll never do that. That's crazy. Why would a seller ever do that? Present that crazy creative offer to enough companies, guess what happens? There's somebody it fits. And after a while, when a guy hasn't been able to sell his business for 3 years, my creative offer starts to look pretty good. See, I just don't go out there to buy a business. I go out there to buy a business well. Get used to being turned down. It won't be the first time or the last. And it's all cool. It's part of the game. Remember patience. You must learn to temper the motivational part of our course with persistence and relax. All will fall into place in time. And be prepared to wait it out. If necessary, good negotiators let time work to their advantage. See, the seller, if he wants to sell, he's got to sell his business. As a buyer, you don't have to buy that business. You can buy another business. So for you, time is not an issue. You're waiting for the right one. You're waiting for a motivated seller. You're waiting for companies with certain types of characteristics to them. They're going to make them easy to finance, i.e. asset-based lenders or whatever technique you're going to use. If you can establish yourself in just one business in the next year, you're doing fine. That's all. It just takes one. And do not fail to start because you can't see all the answers from where you sit now. Have confidence that as the questions present themselves, so will the answers. That's what Bizar Financing is all about.